Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another live episode of Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. I'm Dr. Dejana, and I'm here again with Dr. Leah. Hello, Leah.
Hello, Dr. Dejana. I'm really excited about today. First of all, it's Friday, and so the grandkids are here a lot on the weekend. And we are going to talk today about playing with dirt and the importance of it. And from the time I was a little kid, that's been my favorite thing to do anyway. So,
I love it. The importance of not just playing, but playing with dirt. Go ahead
yes.
and get dirty, right? And I think this is kind of inspired from our playful learning live stream that ran earlier today, where we basically shared a really cool, fun, and easy, simple activity that you can do at home.
Yeah, we thought about building a mud brick doghouse for the new dog, but Tito supplied us with a lovely new doghouse for the dogs, so we're not doing the mud. But the thing that occurred to me watching Michael and Robert do those mud bricks is that this is completely free and it is open to anyone. He used ice cube trays and the sun and dirt from the yard. And even if you live in a small condo or an apartment, you can do a tabletop version. That's what he did. I, of course, was picturing big bricks and a building that we could all fit in eventually.
That
But
sounds like a
maybe
weekend project. That sounds like a
exactly.
weekend project.
Maybe we should welcome our friends.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for joining us. And I want to welcome our panelists. We have Anne McMullen. Go ahead and say, hi, Anne. Happy to see you. An accomplished and respected education consultant based in Los Angeles and is the project director of COSIN Empowered Superintendents Program. Welcome, Anne. And we also have Mark joining us today. Welcome again, Mark. Mark
Hey,
has degrees in music, theology, and sociology and works at West Coast University. Mark lives in Los Angeles. That is our panel for today. You guys, today is all about fun. Now, I'm curious. I just want to ask this question. Do you have any stories you can share when you just got dirty and had a lot of fun as a child? And how can we kind of bring that into today?
I grew up with a what we referred to as the sand patio. I guess it must have had sand at one point, but it was basically dirt. There was a water tap at one corner of it, and my brothers and I used to, dig in, and we'd flood these things and make moats around castles. And if we happened to have the little green army men around, we'd have little battles arranged around the mud hills and the water going sluicing by, or if not, that, then sticks made of little rafts we'd tie together to, get the water and the mud, and it was terrific. But when Leah was talking about how cheap it is, I mean, one of the things I still enjoy doing is a thrift shop stop, right? Like, it's cheap and there's stuff, but like if you're making little bricks or whatever um, out of dirt, you can get really strange little shape builder things for really cheap then too. So not just the ice cube trays, but fancy bowls that somebody threw out for, that used to be serving fancy dishes or whatever, can make little spires and minarets and all kinds of cool stuff too. So I think that the trip to get the accessories can be a fun part of this too.
And I love the sound of that place when you were a kid. Because we had the creek, and the creek when the water was low, and all the polywogs were in there at that time, and we created what we called jelly muck, where you would stand on the shore and tap your foot along the edge of the water until the mud under your foot would just sort of wave. And that was our jelly muck.
I love that. That is so cool. I think we all have stories. I remember we had a dirt racetrack for our Hot Wheel cars. So our little cars, we'd go out, we had a little tiny backyard, and we'd, carve out little valleys and turns and figure eights. And we'd take our cars out there and go dirt racing with our little toy cars. So much fun. I love it.
You know, listening to Leah earlier, I was thinking her love of playing in the mud has now transferred to gardening, right? That's all that's about, Leah. Is just an excuse for you to play with mud again, right? But now you, yeah, yes, but you're
The
really playing with
job.
the mud.
But there really is a method to it. And it's
I
also a
actually,
way to engage the kids in playing with the dirt and also connecting the whole cycle of food and where it comes from and where the nutrition comes from. I think it's such a healthy experience. Even if you don't have a yard and you're planting in a window box, it's letting them see the evolution of plant life.
Absolutely. And as a science teacher, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I love, we did some gardening at home and I was asking my kids, where do they think the plants are big now? Where did all that plant come from? You know, like where did that matter come from? And they, there's different ideas like, oh, the water or the soil, but it gives me the opportunity to teach them that most of it comes from the air and carbon dioxide in the air. So for those of you guys that are like, I don't know about this getting out there and getting dirty, where's the learning at? The learning is everywhere. It's literally everywhere. And as one of my children, they wanted me to reframe dirt as soil. Just saying. Reimagine. Like we're not playing in the dirt, we're playing in the soil.
sounds
That's
much
very
cleaner that way, doesn't
sophisticated and
it?
appreciated.
Oh man.
You know, the other type of dirt that, and I can remember as a child because I lived in Texas and we would travel to the coast for vacation. So the whole playing in the sand business and creating sand castles and you know, it's a different kind of dirt, but certainly now living on the West Coast as well, the creative things you can do when mixing sand and water and building things together and moats and all that kind of thing around there. So yeah, another very inexpensive way to be creative.
So true. And if this wasn't creative, game designers wouldn't have taken this and digitized it. There's a whole segment in the gaming world called sandbox games
There you
that are
go.
literally games that were inspired by people our age building things in the sandbox,
Yeah,
technically. So
yeah.
we're talking about Minecraft and Roblox, all of these different sandbox games. Well, let's get them away from the digital sandbox and maybe reintroduce them to the magic of the real sandbox,
Absolutely.
You
actually.
know, that's such a great idea. And just linking them so that when kids are in Minecraft and other online opportunities to do that kind of building, to tie it to it's what we try to do with the projects that we send out to schools, where here you can build a prototype, then maybe build a CAD drawing of that prototype. Let's the dirt version or soil version of that, I think, in the sandbox. And the same thing with sand and being near the ocean, the health benefits that come to us from being barefoot in that world. And I think, Brandon, don't we have that first website that talks about the 5 reasons to let your children play in the dirt? And so there we go. So I think you need to scroll down a little bit. The first one was, I think that, yes, stress, it lowers your stress level. Like getting out, that's gardening for the grown-ups, playing in the dirt, and for kids, just any kind of playing in the dirt. There's a commercial running right now where the kids are rolling in a mud pit in the backyard, and I thought, oh wow, you can do that. I have dirt. But that's a really healthy, great benefit of it.
I love
And
it. You're reminding me when I was a kid in school, we went to this place in the mountains. I think it was called Mudland. And literally, it was a field trip. We got in a bus. I think I was in third or fourth grade, and we brought extra clothes. And the whole thing is just mud, wet mud, a mud lake, a mud moat. You climb through mud, you crawl through mud. It was amazing.
I think I have to
Now,
go there.
I I hope in 2025, when COVID-19 is done, that they open back up so that we can all go back and experience this because it was amazing. I've tried to recreate it in the backyard, but imagine, 20 acres of mud land for
Oh,
just to be in. And what you said, Leah, really hit me too. It's good for, it reduces stress. It's good for our health to just get out there and be. So for all of you moms and dads at home, don't be afraid. I say, let's go out there and do it. One
yeah.
thing that I'm inspired about is I think I might take my kids, whatever they build in Minecraft, and then challenge them to build it with mud bricks. And then maybe
Ooh.
challenge them to build it with Lego bricks. Just kind of do different builds, but using the different medias.
Well, and the benefit to that too is that you're not telling them that you're going to restrict their time on the digital. You're challenging them to come away from the digital long enough to do the physical.
Absolutely.
You're really
Absolutely.
good at that playful learning stuff, Dejana.
It's fun. You have to, I mean, I feel you parents out there. We have to be on our toes to try and manipulate the learning in a way that's really joyful for not only our children, but for us as well.
And
My when my son was in elementary school, he spent most of his elementary school career at a one-room schoolhouse in San Diego, up in the mountains, and they had a corner. I think we all sort of thought of it as the timeout corner, but if a kid was having trouble acting out or whatever, there was a Zen table or a Zen garden built on a tabletop about half the size of a piece of plywood, maybe, filled with sand. Had some little rakes and rocks and whatnot, but rather than calling attention to the fact that the kid had trouble, they just kind of nod over in that direction. The kid go, okay, and they go back there and they play in the sand and let it sift between their fingers or use the little rake, and you could just watch these kids de-stress until they got to the place where they felt comfortable and could come and rejoin the one room school thing again. And it's so much better than getting sent to the principal or something. Just go over there and once you got stuff under control again, then you're back with us. But it was just
wow, what a
sand. It was
creative
just
way to
sand.
handle that.
I think we all need a Zen garden in our home.
Yes.
For sure, for sure.
There's also a psychologist in Manhattan who's recently written a book on the importance of letting your kids be barefoot in the dirt, and whether that's just a small little plot you put on the roof of your building in Manhattan or on your balcony, but that your kids have access to the earth on a regular basis to play. So I think there's some real advantages and no cost. The other thing that I think is important about this, that you really can make it just fun initially. Like, you can go out on the weekend and do nothing but play in the mud and not really talk about the educational side of it, and then maybe challenge the kids when they come back to write a paragraph about what they experienced in the mud, and then do a little bit of research online because they don't mind going back to the computer, and come up with some information about dirt, like making it sort of a long lasting experience instead of just the time in the mud.
I
Yeah,
like
Leah, I like that. And in addition to writing about it, they could also draw pictures and illustrate, what they had experienced. And yeah, I like that a lot. That's
Yeah,
a good
and
idea.
your mud haikus and yeah, and with your ukulele, you've got your mud songs.
I think we just came up with an entire unit on mud.
I
Okay.
think so.
Experience the mud, write about the mud, sing about the mud, draw the mud, use the mud to make sculptures. Like, there's talk about STEAM, there's science, tech, engineering, art, and math all wrapped into one free material that many of us have easy access to, which would be mud. I love it,
And I
100%.
think for a deep dive on this idea, you could also do things like food access, right? Because your food comes from the dirt. And so when you look through a grocery store, 90% of what you see comes in a box. The idea, starting to put that idea of where real nutrition is, and then looking at it from an access, an equity point of view. There's another whole lesson there. And then there's the agricultural side of it. Like, how do we feed the planet moving forward? And looking at what's happened currently in this pandemic, we're now worried about international need for, right now it's the PPE, but eventually food. We need to know that we can have food made locally and feed the number of people. So getting kids to look at things like no-till farming and what does that mean and how does it impact the environment? Like, there are so many ways to drill down in this conversation to engage higher level education or kids that just find themselves really interested in dirt.
I love it. I think you just embraced kind of the one room schoolhouse where like we can play with mud and bricks and build things, but we can also look at it at a deeper level in terms of food scarcity and what does that look like, and where does the food come from, and climate change and drought, and how is that affecting our food supply. You could really do a really cool deep dive, um, just from playing in some dirt.
And just by way of full disclosure, I went from first to seventh grade in a one-room country schoolhouse that had first to eighth grade in it. And in the eighth grade, they moved all of the farm kids to what was called a consolidated school. And it was devastating. The difference between being in that little community of all the ages to suddenly being in a city environment with only kids your own age in the classroom and going from 26 or 27 kids to a school of 1,000 kids with all these grades. It was culture shock at best. And it took me out of the dirt.
I can't even imagine, but it took you out of dirt. Well, it's interesting that we talk about this one room schoolhouse because I know there are a lot of parents right now that are trying to get to form pods or their own little like micro schools, with being innovative with the current state of education. Going into remote and distance learning, some parents are looking for alternative options by creating their own one room schoolhouses in their homes with a community of friends. So it'll be really interesting to see if this becomes embraced again as we move forward in education.
Yeah, I think the homeschool movement has kind of leveled off. It's grown a little bit, but this has created a whole new world of people who are interested in homeschooling because there's no option initially. And then moving forward, could it be a positive option? Again, in full disclosure, that is what we're talking about as an organization. Can we help in the virtual school world support parents and make something that kids are excited to log into, as opposed to you have to be there at 8 o'clock, but like, oh my God, they're not starting yet. I've got this idea. I'm working with that group on whatever the project is, but making it something that the kids are engaged in and want to be a part of.
Well, and Leah, that's what was so terrific about the broadcast earlier today with the mud bricks. The activity that they were doing was hands-on, and so for parents to be able to see that and see, oh, here's an option, and the discussion that Robert and the instructor's name is Richard again, is that right?
Michael.
Robert and Michael were having around, okay, do we put an entry here? Do we move a brick over here? And having created his bricks out of, like you said, mud and water and the ice cube tray, but then they brought Legos into it as well, you know, and how do they do that? So that whole demonstration, I just think was very powerful for parents to see that, you know, we can do that and we can replicate that here in our house.
Absolutely. And I think that's what our playful learning stream is all about. Just trying to throw it out there that this can be fun and this can be playful and this can be easy, and let's just do it together, right? Let's just
Yeah.
do it.
And that playful part's going to be so important this fall as kids go back to school, because I felt the kind of full community depression that hit parents when LAUSD said they were not going to go back to the classroom. I know that it was also really a relief because of the worries about COVID, but for those parents that are really struggling with instruction at home, it's important to separate out time that is just for fun. And you may, while you're having that fun, be saying, oh, there's this educational piece and there's that educational piece, but that can be an internal dialogue until the weekday comes. So the kids really do get into the experience of a cut, okay, that's school and this is home. And it's going to be really important for parents to find ways to really engage in the joy of life and the fun of life.
It is going to be a challenge, but there are strategies, there are tools. Just kind of keep pushing at it and don't give up. One of the things that I'm trying to implement for my own kids is they're looking at distance remote learning for the fall. I'm trying to be as excited about it as I can, regardless of the challenges that we're going to be facing with doing it. I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be great. They're going to figure out something new. We're going to learn. This is awesome. We're so excited about this. And then meanwhile, you know, the parent voice inside of me is like, oh gosh, this is going to be crazy. But I think it's one of our jobs is to say, like, look, yes, this is challenging. This is different. It can be fun. It can be new. And we'll figure it out together as a family. But what you mentioned, Leah, is trying to find a separation between school and home. That's going to be a new thing for us since school is happening at home. So children all over, especially in Los Angeles, they're not necessarily being homeschooled. They're being schooled while at home. So that separation of homeschool, just like many of us are trying to figure out the separation of work, home, that's going to be a journey that we're all going to be on together.
Yeah, and I think it's important to help nurture in this next generation the ability to take time off. Because, you know, I think I'm part of the workaholic generation, and I'm not so much that. I like time off, but I remember the Lee Iacocca effect on my contemporaries, where people were at the office by 6 in the morning and staying until 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. I'd really like to make sure that that's not the reality for the next generation. I like to introduce a little more of the European flavor, where you take an hour and a half to 2 for lunch, and then you come back and you work later into the evening, but you have a siesta, and you take a few weeks off in the summer where you close everything down.
I love that model. I was listening to a TEDx that was talking about the 3-day work week in Australia and how research has shown that they're much more effective working for those 3 days.
Wow.
And then taking that long weekend so that humans can adjust to work effectively and just compact it into short amounts of time so that you have more time to do the things that you want to do on a weekend. I thought that was amazing. I didn't even know that existed. Me being here in the States, I'd never heard of a traditional 3-day work week, 3 or 4 day work weeks. Those are actually a thing.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds heavenly, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, it does. A quick little awkward transition. If I were to have a 3-day or 4-day work week, I would definitely spend some of my weekends enjoying nature. And I just wanted to, we did talk about, this was about mud and gardening and everything. I just wanted to share with our viewers that there's this amazing tool if you are definitely a naturalist inside, where you can basically go on an urban hike in your neighborhood, if you happen to be urban like I am, or even a little stroll around your backyard, your patio, down the street. And you can go and identify all of the different organisms, bugs, plants, even the different types of soil by using this really cool website that's called iNaturalist. So if you're like me and you walk around and you see a little bird and you're like, I wonder what that bird is, take a snapshot of that bird and it'll tell you instantly what that bird is. If you see a beautiful flower blooming in your neighbor's yard, take a snapshot of that flower and it'll tell you the natural history of that flower. It'll also tell you the locations where all the other flowers just like that have been photographed in your neighborhood. It's so cool, so fun, and so amazing, free and available to anyone. So in addition to getting dirty, you can also put on your naturalist hat, armed with your mobile device and a camera. This is supported by National Geographic. So if you've ever wanted to be a Nat Geo explorer, now's your time. And you can go and explore and learn about the life and the nature that's right around you.
I love this. Dr. DeJana, is this the Picture This app that I have on my phone, or is that something different?
It's something different. It's quite comparable. It works like that, but this one is linked specifically with the Academy of Sciences and National Geographic, so you get a lot more detailed information about
I need it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
You're all in. It's all about being a citizen scientist or just curious about the stuff that's around you. We can't get out really far. We're not taking our big vacations, but we can be curious about what's around.
Isn't that the answer? Curiosity? Oh, Anne, please, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Dejana to give us the name of the website.
Oh, the website is iNaturalist.
iNaturalist.
Letter I and naturalist. It works out like if you happen to be on the beach, how many of you have seen like weird seaweed or stuff on the beach? Take a picture of it and you can get information at the tip of your hands. I was a curious child and wanted to know about everything when I was little, and smartphones didn't exist. So I'd have to go to a library and try and remember what I saw and look through pages in the encyclopedia, or I'd go home to my Britannica set. I don't know if you guys remember the Britannica. Nowadays, it's all in the palm of your hand. So,
and Dr. DeJana, you may have been really curious as a kid. You are very curious as an adult as well. And that curiosity has bubbled over to your children, which is really wonderful, because that is the answer. If we can keep kids curious, they want to do the research. They want to dig into the topics. That's how they end up down a rabbit hole. So our real role is to help guide them into safe rabbit holes.
I like that, and we should hashtag that, Dr. Leah, safe rabbit holes. We're guides.
Safe rabbit holes with the Playful Learning team at Two Mid-Circus Foundation.
I love it. I love it. Well, it looks like we're almost out of time here.
We are.
But I really enjoyed this conversation about mud, the garden, and having fun.
Absolutely. Mark and Anne, thank you so much for joining us.
And for you guys viewing, thank you for joining us for another episode of Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. I'm Dr. DeJana here with Dr. Leah, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.